Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the VSI Sporting Directors podcast with our friends at Omnisport. Now, over the past few months, we've been talking about the Saudi Pro League. We've had headlines, we've had speculation, we've had informed opinion. What we haven't had is the inside track. What we're going to get is that today. We're going to speak to someone who works inside the Saudi Pro League, but not only that, has worked for two of the UK's biggest football clubs, and we'll talk about that as well. But time to introduce him. It is Mark Allen, who's the Football Director of Development for Ettifaq, and lovely to see you. It's pouring with rain here in Manchester. It's been absolutely bottlenecks because of that. I imagine you don't have that problem in Saudi Arabia, do you?
No, although ironically, it did rain for the first time in a long time 2 days ago, and it was a bit of a shock, to be honest.
Yeah, I bet it was. A better shock for the locals, wasn't
it? Yeah. You can almost equate it to Britain with snow to Saudi with rain, not really knowing how best to cope with it.
And I imagine it's the first winter break you've ever had. Not only that, the first winter break you've ever had with sunshine.
Yeah, well, yeah. Although we did do some sunshine breaks with Rangers, but not nowhere near the climate and temperature of here. But yeah, very good, and thoroughly enjoying it.
Now, the funny thing about the transfer window in this country is it was quiet. There were no stories at all. And what that meant was that the Saudi Pro League was front and centre. And not only that, Ettifaq was front and centre because of Jordan Henderson. I imagine you've come away from that probably with a little bit of regret, disappointment, but also keen to move in different directions. Is that kind of a fair representation of things, Mark?
Yeah, look. It was a football decision with an amicable decision reached by both parties that we would shake hands and move on. Jordan's a fantastic professional, an unbelievable person, and it was reciprocated in terms of positive words on both sides, but moved on in terms of maybe not the right time.
Yeah, I mean, you know that timing's everything in football. I guess it's another instance, another different situation, and maybe further on down the line, it might work very well for both parties.
Yeah, as I say, it was purely a football decision. Both parties coming to the table, agreeing it was sensible for both to shake hands, move on. As I've said, Jordan is a fantastic individual, fantastic footballer and person. There were no ill feelings on either side. As you say, timing is everything, and both parties have moved on.
Yeah, I know from a media perspective, he was a joy to deal with. I guess from your perspective, a joy to deal with as well, was he?
100%. As I say, a consummate professional, a lovely person to boot. And as I say, our best wishes go with him.
And what it means now is an opportunity for both sides as well, an opportunity for Jordan perhaps to get into a European Championships in Germany and for yourselves to look in a different direction.
Well, yeah, whenever there's a change, it brings opportunity. And I think we've taken that opportunity now to reconsider what we do, how we do it, and that manifested itself somewhat in the transfer window.
Yeah, was it an unexpected thing to be in the spotlight? Bearing in mind you're a million miles away from the UK, but we had a quiet window here, so suddenly the spotlight was on you.
Yes and no. I think there's been a lot of conjecture about Saudi Arabia, etc. So we, to be brutally honest, we just got on with things and never really paid that much attention to it, other than just focusing on what we were trying to do, which was to revamp the squad somewhat in readiness for the second part of the season.
What you did do was send a clear message about longevity and stability, though, in agreeing a new contract with Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, and as I say, I think everybody here is very, very happy, very contented. We can see where this is going. It's very, very positive. The support we've received is unbelievable. We really do feel somewhat blessed here in a way that they're very, very keen to promote and also to support all the initiatives we've brought to the table. And I think I've said on previous occasions, this is going to stay. This is here to stay. It's not a quick flash in the pan project.
Yeah, I mean there is longevity. We know about the hopes of the 2034 World Cup, and yet on this side of the fence, people are saying, well, exactly that. It's a flash in the pan. It's all about money. It's going to go bang. What's the reality here? You're living on the inside.
I don't think you can put the two together and come up with that conclusion, to be honest, because the very fact everybody who's been involved in a major competition knows if you've planned for something and accepted to be putting yourself forward for a major tournament, then what goes with that is a heck of a lot of planning, infrastructure, communications, etc., etc. So, I think the very fact that's been secured, I think we'll work backwards from that, to where we are now in the next 2 to 3 years.
I think the other misconception is that the whole league was almost manufactured, and yet you're sitting there at a football club that's been there for 79 years, that won 13 league titles, were invincible for a season. So, it's a football club with proper roots, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's like everything else. When the headlines don't really do justice to what lies underneath in many respects. And therefore, I think you can only talk, I suppose, like I can on this, having been in there now and seen it for myself, and to see the level of support and enthusiasm there is for the game here, and where it ultimately, hopefully, will end up.
The idea behind the podcast is doing things a little bit differently. It's kind of lifting the curtain and working out how the structure of football works, or the structure of a footballing organisation or a sporting organisation. With that in mind, how have the last 4 months been compared with where you've been before? Has it been a flurry? Has it been, blimey, I've got to get this done, that done? There's so much to do.
Yes and no, and I'll qualify that. I think if I look back to my time at City and Rangers, there were things that may have been in place but needed, if you like, modernising and taking on and re-establishing. So they weren't the finished items, if you will, of finished entities. So there were similarities. I guess this, in many ways, has been more of a blank canvas, and that brings with it, the excitement as well to be able to deal with a blank canvas and put ideas that you may have picked up over your years of other practices and other organisations, and a chance to put a blueprint down and hopefully leave a legacy at the football club that will continue and allow them to operate in an elite way.
I think the other thing with a blank canvas is you want the freedom to be able to paint how you paint, don't you?
Yeah, and we've been given that. It's very much they've welcomed the guys have welcomed the expertise that's in the camp, taking it on board, and we're in the process of implementing those plans now over sort of 3 or 4 phases. For
people who don't know how it works, there are 4 teams owned by the sovereign wealth funds. Your team isn't. You've also got 3 overseas stars in Moussa Dembele, Damari Gray, Gigi Wijnaldum. People will know those established names, but it's not the kind of glittering array that maybe you've got in those other 4 teams that I talked about at the start of the question.
No, and again, those 3 names in particular have done exceptionally well for us, and deliver what you would expect of the top quality players that they are. But you've got Jack Henry, who's a Scottish international, who's come in. Alvaro Medran, we signed, who is a player that played locally in Taiwan, but started his career at Real Madrid, and is a very, very good technician and a very, very, very good footballer. And we just signed Carla Camby, who's just returned from the African nations as well. So we've blended it with people and players who have experience of the league, which I think is very important, so they know how the Saudi league operates and works, together with names that people at home would obviously recognise.
Was that the major difference in terms of the trading you did this transfer window in January, to get some nous, to get some experience of that, and as you say, sort of flesh it out with outside experience as well?
Yeah, I think spot on. I think we wanted to effectively, most of the window, in fact, all of the window was with what I would call local players. Even though 2 of those were if you like, foreign in inverted commas, in Akambi and Alvaro Medran. But we needed to, if you like, increase the experience of the local players. We got a young squad, young players who have done very well, but in football parlance, I would say not quite ready yet for the thrust of first team football week in, week out. Very promising, but we tried to sort of increase the level of experience, if you like, within this squad. And and very similar, I think, to what I saw at Rangers when I first went into Rangers. The actual profile of the player has changed somewhat in terms of perhaps a bit more athletic, and if you like, more physically developed, being older players.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, director of football development gives you kind of so many fingers in different pies. I mean, you've got the on the pitch, you've got the off the pitch. I guess on the pitch is the priority right now, is it?
Yeah, and again, just for clarity, I suppose, I think that the title is it's a sporting director's role in another name now. It's on and off the pitch. Like all things, being successful on the pitch is where you're trying to get to as quickly as you possibly can, but you can't ignore behind the scenes and the backroom staff and the facilities, because they in turn themselves enhance, support, and help drive, if you like, the performance on the pitch because of what all the various areas, departments and facilities do to aid that.
Yeah, you've talked about your recruitment in terms of players. How pleased you've been with your recruitment in terms of staff?
Yeah, very happy. I think we've got a level of experience now who have worked in the game a long time, bring an abundance of experience from various football clubs. And I think more importantly, it's a team that has gelled very well off the pitch as well, which I think is vitally important. And I'm delighted with the level of experience we've been able to bring to the table, and to be able therefore to move, if you like, even quicker in terms of where we need to get to, because these guys probably know what good looks like, and are able to sort of get us there in a quicker way. But also the character and the personalities of the people, which was equally important in putting a team together, because you need to be a team on it, obviously, and a squad on the pitch, but equally, I think you need to have that same type of environment off it as well, where everyone's pulling together and there are no egos, really. It's all pulling towards one common aim, one common goal.
And when it's kind of an environment that, although it's football you're familiar with, but it's a country that you're not familiar with, how important is that you're employing or recruiting people that you can trust, who know you can can do the job?
Yeah, I think that's vital, because it's one thing to come to a different part of the world and experience a new culture. But you've got to know that the individuals are capable, if you will, professionally, of delivering what's required. And I think we've been extremely fortunate as a football club to bring that level of expertise into the club. And yeah, I think everyone would say they're thoroughly enjoying it.
But when you came to the club in October, did you look at the kind of window in the winter break and think, there's the opportunity to get a structure put in place, get people in, and almost treat the season as two halves, where you try and do better in the second half of the season to what you did maybe in the first half?
I think, to be honest, James, there was a level of observation needed first, just to make sure, before you sort of dive in at the deep end in many respects, just make sure you clearly understand, the league, how it functions, the rules, regulations, the permutations of certain things. And then to sort of take that step back a little bit and just have a look, if you like, from the helicopter and see what you're seeing, and then identify where possible areas you think can improve. And all of that's going on, obviously, while you're playing games. So you're learning you're learning on the job in many respects, and as you go along. But yes, I think it was fair to say that whilst the recruitment of the backroom staff was going on, if you like, in the background, the main focus was the transfer window to try and really make that change, if you like, or that shift to another gear, hopefully.
I think whenever it's going to kind of alien environments or different environments, you have preconceptions about what you might find. How has the reality differed maybe from those preconceptions or the stereotypes or the things that people were saying to you when you said, right, I'm off to Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, listen, I mean, again, I'm not trying to be smart here, but I'm someone who makes my own mind up anyway. Yes, I listen to people and take advice, of course, like we all do. But when it comes to things like this, I like to see for myself. And that goes with people, players, all of these things. Yeah, stories, this, is that, they're this, they're that. I would rather sort of take my own time and make my own judgment on that as a person. That's just how I operate. But that said, I was very, very impressed with where we want to go. I think that's probably more important than what was here at the start. I think there was a recognition that we needed to move quickly. We needed to put things in place. So there was no misconception on that. We came in eyes wide open in many respects to what we had to do. I think the positive and the reassuring thing is we've been supported completely in that. And we're very excited about where hopefully by the end of this season, from an infrastructure perspective, we'll end up.
Yeah, I mean, that's phased, if you like, in terms of what you're trying to bring in, but you've already made some pretty crucial developments in terms of infrastructure of the football club at the moment, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, as I say, they're dealt with in phases. So the first phase was to get our gym, arena, up to the level that we think is right for a professional environment. The coaching office, medical, auditoriums, various sort of additional office space to operate. That was in phase one, which was completed probably about 7 weeks ago. We're actively approaching the end of phase two, which will see kit, laundry, changing rooms, canteen, etc. And then we'll rapidly enter phase three, which will be a purpose-built building for the first team arena, which encompasses all of those things I've just mentioned, and 3 purpose-built pitches. We've got pitches, but purpose-built pitches, all floodlit, which will be an environment that will challenge most, in terms of level, quality, and suitability.
And doing all those things, again, with one eye perhaps on the next window as well already.
Yeah, it never stops. One window closes, you're getting ready for the next one. But, again, I brought Thomas Spring in from the New York Red Bulls to head up scouting. So we're just going through all of the sort of principles, if you like, of setting up that scouting department right now in terms of various softwares and technologies, as well as all the player profiling that is important in terms of what's an Ettifaq player. And then off the back of that, then, we'll be looking and focusing on where we think we need to strengthen. And you always have to be prepared. You have to be ready for that as well.
Does the departure of Jordan Henderson give you a bit more freedom and sort of accessibility, bearing in mind you've got some funds to play with now as well, or extra funds?
Yeah, yes, and again, I think what it does, it's we took a more strategic decision in the window to give us a little bit more firepower in the middle three and the front three by effectively losing, for want of a better description, a foreign slot at the back. We brought a local centre back in, and one of our sort of foreign players has gone on loan to another club. Which has allowed us to give us what we think is a little bit more in the middle of the park and further up front, and we hope that pays dividends.
The other thing that seems to be in this country, and you'll know from your time at Manchester City and also Rangers in Scotland, there's a suspicion that there's not a sharing of information, or it's very rare for that to happen. There seems to be a sharing of information within the Saudi Pro League. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, very. Yeah, I think information flows through to the league and back, there's no issue on communication, and everybody is informed as to what we're doing, where we're going, it seems to be working.
And the role of the sporting director, one that's more common rather than rare. There seems to be understanding that's pivotal to how a football club operates.
I can only speak for Ettifaq at the moment, although I do think other clubs are looking and appointing themselves. They, to be fair, I report into a football committee. Together with Steven, the manager, and there can be a free rein in many respects. That's what we've got. We run the whole football side of things from top to bottom, and reporting as and when required. And they're very active in terms of support and attendance and all of those good things. So I guess in many respects that there are no issues and no complaints here. But, we are getting supported, and long may that continue.
How big a factor was Steven Gerrard in you deciding, right, I want to go and ply my trade in Saudi Arabia?
I think it was the biggest single factor, to be brutally honest. Steven and I worked very well at Rangers together, and the chance to sort of come back and work with him again was too good an opportunity for me to turn down. And yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and as I say, it was a massive factor in that decision.
I talked about him committing his future and signing an extended deal. How driven is he to make this a success in terms of the project that you've got?
Well, anyone who knows Steven knows one of the things he is driven. And I think, the character himself speaks volumes in terms of his commitment, his drive, his passion, his enthusiasm, his focus, his drive. So I think, all of those added in should give you a picture for how Steven sees this. And he's determined to make sure that, we do as much as we can to try and make the club as successful as we can.
I think it was interesting when he first came to the club, a lot of the media on this side of the fence were anxious to paint it as a bad decision or a wrong decision. But how important was it to get people in and around him like yourself to kind of give him the support he needed to do the job he can do as a football coach?
Yeah, listen, I think my own philosophy is good leaders surround themselves with very good people who are more than able to do the job required, that and probably to a better degree than yourself sometimes in that specific task. So if that's medical or analysis or recruitment, and I think what he is an excellent leader, and that I think has reverberated in, dare I say it, the people he surrounded himself and brought in, and we've added to in recent times to give that level of expertise. So you have got experts in their field, and there's probably not many better leaders than himself in terms of making all that come together.
I think what he also is a winner and somebody who wants to win titles and have success. He won't be happy that the club's 8th in the table at the moment. And I imagine that was kind of what was spelt out at the start of the window, the start of January, the start of a winter break, as I said, to kind of make that second half of the season better than the first half. And that looks like what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and again, just for the record, that was a collective agreement with the club as well. The club supported that and wholeheartedly agreed with that view that we needed to strengthen. So I don't think it was a banging on table situation. Far from it. Quite the opposite. It was a very amicable, sat round the table, agreed where we were, where we needed to get to, and what we hoped we could do to try and improve the situation. And that manifested itself in myself and probably Steven feeling, we've done as best as we could in that transfer window, with the players' availabilities, etc., and with the support of the football club.
I think that the next question that begs to be asked is what does good look like? What is achievable for Ettifaq, not only this season, but within that framework? When you've got Neymar's team at the top, 25 points ahead of you, you've got Ronaldo's team second, and we talked about the kind of sovereign wealth fund. How do you crack that? Is it down to coaching? Is it down to recruitment? Is it down to having an academy that works?
Yes, all of the above, James. And I think, dare I say it, I've been a noisy neighbour before. So our job is to try and be a noisy neighbour, I think, and try and get a breakthrough to try and challenge it and get into there. We're all ambitious people. We all believe we can, and we'll do our level best to improve the club as we go along, both on and off the pitch, to try and achieve that.
Yeah, I mentioned the academy. How important is it to build that, bearing in mind your background at Manchester City, the 8 years there of building and refurbishing and putting that academy on a different path? What's the club's view? Yeah,
I'm from an academy background, so I have huge faith and passion for academy. I think the most fundamental thing to realise is the players of 2034 are starting their academy careers now. So I think more than ever, focus on academy in the next 2, 3 to 5 years has to be paramount, because they're the players who will be coming through all of these academies to go on and represent their country in the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot said about this generation in terms of their temperament and their if you like the way they deal with things. Does that have to bleed its way into the coaching and the infrastructure that you have to make sure you get the best out of this generation that's coming through? Bearing in mind, people talk about resilience being an issue and them being an emotional sort of generation.
if I look back to my days at City, that's exactly what we tried to instill in the younger players who came through the system. That degree of being able to manage setbacks, understanding it was working hard every day, understanding that there was a dedication to how you eat, how you sleep, how you recover. All of those things, were evident in certainly my time at City. And the fruits hopefully are there for people to see that if you put those things in, you'll develop academy players who will come through, and even if they don't come through for your club, they'll go on to have careers at others.
I mean, it's an enormous remit, isn't it? Is the secret to get people in positions that you can then delegate and kind of oversee and make sure that it works on all those different levels?
Yeah, I think it comes down to management style. I don't like to be man managed and people looking over my shoulder. And I hope that I don't do that, with the people who come into me. I believe this role is about managing and leading experts. Let the experts be experts. Just make sure we stay on a common goal and everyone stays on piece then, should we say.
Yeah, I think the other thing is you want to see words turned into actions. And over the last 6 weeks, there's been an element where they seem to be turned into actions. Results have been good. You want a trophy, albeit a winter break trophy, and you've beaten an MLS side.
Yeah, and again, I think you're absolutely right. Actions speak louder than words. A lot of the strategy was, about improving the players. We targeted players. We went after them. We were successful. And the early signs are positive. But, we kick a ball in anger for the first time tomorrow. So that's when I think we really have to be judged, I suppose, and we'll see whether it has made a big difference. But we're all hoping. Players are looking sharp in training. The environment's excellent, so we hope we can transfer that onto the pitch.
Yeah, and in terms of the outside world judging the Saudi